Good night. Ajmahari here. I'm going to say something in this video probably won't be that popular at first. Depends where people with codependency are. But are you ready yet? Maybe nobody's ever really feeling ready, but are you willing yet or ready to open to getting into a healing recovery process to explore where you're at right now, wherever that means, after a BPD relationship breakup, that maybe isn't a final breakup, that is a ghosting or a ghosting or a discard, but you don't know if it's final, and what you're going through with that. And how many people seem to be with codependency aware that they really want this borderline back, but are you aware of exactly why? And are you aware of how that can be, in an unconscious way for you as a codependent, you seeking something in the borderline that really isn't about the borderline? And what could that mean in codependency? What do you think? Because you see, codependency is a woundedness to varying degrees for people that is about having unmet needs, maybe being more adversely affected in childhood than, say, neglect or just an emotionally unavailable parent. But those situations definitely cause people to have codependency, being parentified, being leaned on in a breakup between parents as the replacement for maybe your mother or father's partner, and then they lean on you with all their emotions, and you're a child and you need what you need, and they're not giving you what you need because they're in a place where they can't even meet their own needs, and they're asking you to be there for them. Very injurious and wounding. This isn't the exact way it happens for everybody with codependency, but it's very common. And so, as whatever your experience was in childhood, and many people are aware of it and many people aren't, that caused the woundedness, that created your response to that adverse experience or hurt or unmet needs known as codependency, I think people with codependency need to learn a lot more about what you're doing and why. Why are you pursuing the borderline? And why are you so focused on the borderline or a narcissist? But whether it's a female or a male, the borderline that you're focused on pursuing and still pursuing and getting back with and wanting those good feelings back, how is that not more about you at this point after certain periods of time? And I don't mean about you like there's something really wrong with you. I'm not saying that. But how is it not more about what you need and trying to seek that because you think maybe you could just get back with that borderline and somehow it could, quote, work out, that then you wouldn't be suffering as you are now, and you could have that person who you thought was that person for you, or your soulmate, or the person of your dreams, but they really weren't who you thought they were at all. And you know that up here now. You do. But so many people are still wanting them back, waiting for the Hoovers. I can't tell you even begin to describe what's happened to the term no contact. Because now, even if I add, and we see this all over the internet, even if I add the words full no contact to no contact, and how important that is, and how that's a step people with codependency, except for when there's children involved, etc., but you're going to need to get there somehow. And that's what I'm out here to work with people on, amongst many other moving pieces of this, BPD relationship breakup, coping and surviving, and then looking to heal and understand and make decisions for yourself that are going to actually be focused from what you need and not what you think the other person needs, or you have too much empathy or compassion for the borderline who just devastated you because when people who have codependency, anybody really, but if you get together with a person with borderline personalities, or especially untreated, or the patterns of all that, they're not even diagnosed, these relationships are not ever lasting. They do not work out. So I would like to encourage people with codependency today, if you've never done this before, rather than focusing on the borderline, what are they doing, they're going to hoover me, this final discard, blah, blah, blah. What about you? What are you feeling? And what is your understanding of what you're wanting? And then when you understand what you want, which is probably a replication of the idealization honeymoon phase with the borderline, because it felt so great, but you know that you can't get that back. Most people do know that up here, right? In their intellectual awareness. But so do you have much awareness, do you think, as a codependent, in any iteration of all this, quote, BPD relationship breakup that isn't a, quote, breakup, and all the revolving door recycling, all these things I'm always saying, and or you're waiting for that Hoover, what do you think is going on for you? How is it that you're still abandoning yourself? What are you avoiding about yourself and your pain? Why do you think that even many times with a borderline, recycling through the relationship, getting ghosted, being discarded, or you break up, they come back, you come back, what about that seems like it's working for you? When you get hurt more and more every time, does that really feel like it's working for you? And I know to one degree, some people would say, well, but yeah, when I get back there, I get that feeling, and when it's kind of like good again, really briefly often, and then getting back to the physical, quote, intimacy, which isn't always that intimate, but you know what I mean, the physical relations, it's like a hit of a drug, only it's not really clearly that you're that addicted. But it's everything that people with codependency need to learn to work through, to understand about that separation from self, how you do not have a functional, healthy relationship to and with yourself because you have codependency. And the only way to change that is to heal the codependency, as well as part of that is healing from the BPD or NPD relationship breakup, or the relationship in and of itself. So what do you think's driving you to keep wanting to go back, to get it right, to do it better? I mean, so many clients have told me, and people share on the channel and in live streams, they just think, well, if I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have done that, or if I didn't say this, and if I said this instead of that, I hope if you don't realize yet that you'll hear me here, think about it a little bit, that's all what-ifing. And it's what-ifing that isn't even based in a possibility of a framework of truth that would change anything, no matter how many times you recycle with a borderline. Because it's like you're dancing, as a codependent, you're dancing as fast as you can. You are actually spinning the borderline's roller coaster wheel if you keep wanting to re-engage them. But at the same time, you're trying to stop their roller coaster wheel from spinning. Does that give you a sense at all of how devastatingly impossible what you might want is, and what you're still investing in is? And then what's on the other side of that if you're not ruminating, experiencing the cognitive dissonance? And I'm not saying you're doing this on purpose, but if you're not tied into that focus, those types of focuses, you bet. I think I'm taking the air conditioner out of the window. If you're not tied into those focuses, different elements of focus, which is continually re-abandoning yourself. By the way, a lot of people with codependency are re-abandoning themselves, in a way that you experienced abandonment in your childhood. And what does that really mean in codependency? Well, various different things for various different people. That you might have been abandoned, that you might have been betrayed by a parent, maybe several times, that you might have just had unmet needs, or you might have been parentified, or you might have really been neglected and or suffered a lot of adverse experience. There's a lot of people with codependency, not everyone, has a cluster B parent, or maybe two cluster B parents, but at least one, and not everyone, but often. And or often, if not even cluster B, but an emotionally unavailable parent. And it could be mother or it could be father. It's all, hey, Buffy, no, the dog barked outside. Buffy. So people with codependency have to start coming out of that repetition kind of externalization out from codependence, and what I'm always talking about that, and what does that mean? That you have learned in childhood that you need to please other parent, right? Or sibling or whatever. But you've learned you just need to please other people and achieve and do for them in the hopes that they'll give you what you need and what you deserve in the first place, especially in childhood. So you're still in the fight of your life, which is replicating something from your childhood, people with codependency. You're still in the emotional fight of your life to run away from that pain, abandon yourself, and get involved in somebody else's nightmare, the borderline or the narcissist, and the roller coaster that goes round and round, that you know, metaphorically speaking, you're hanging on to the bottom of one of those benches on the roller coaster, whatever they're called, seats. When the roller coaster is spinning, you're barely hanging on and you're being flung all around and you're not on the roller coaster. The roller coaster belongs to the borderline or the narcissist. You just are barely hanging on to the bottom of the seat when that thing's really spinning. Give you any idea of how actually lost you might be in your own right, emotionally, about who you're trying to relate to and why? That people with codependency have unconsciously, you are unconsciously experiencing the borderline or the narcissist as one of your wounding parents to one degree or another, or something that went awry somewhere in your childhood that you're not aware of, that might not have been a major adverse experience. But here's the thing that a lot of people with codependency don't seem to realize or just aren't aware of. Because a lot of people with codependency say to me when we start working together, or people say on the channel in comments or whatever, what have you, that I had a great childhood, so I really don't know why I have codependency. I don't know. Do I? To what degree? I don't know if I understand what you're saying. A lot of people with codependency will definitely, not necessarily in a process when I'm working with them, but will they push back sometimes and defend? Yeah. But a lot of people online will just argue with me because they're not seeing something about themselves. That's what I would say in this topic area, right? So people with codependency really do need to be in a healing recovery process to be able to break that unhealthy bond. You're not going to get that done by yourself. And I'm speaking as somebody who not only helps people to do that, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, but I'm saying that as somebody who knows both sides of this, right? From the labeling of BPD and my healing recovery from that, and I had codependency, and I've healed from that, and, I understand what it's like to be avoiding yourself at all costs, even in that codependent way, because what's on the other side of your continuing to focus on the cluster B and or chase them and or pursue them and or recycle with them? It's the wounded inner child inside of you. And it's how you've been wounded in this relationship and lost yourself even more. People with codependency, not all are the same, but are largely very avoidant, self-avoidant. Because to be able to, shift from focus on the cluster B, on the recycling, etc., you're going to have to turn into your own adversity and the pain of that. But it's so rewarding to do it. It hurts. Then you learn how to cope with it better. Then we look at your family of origin. We do many of these different iterations and layers of work, as how I work with clients, and allowing clients to have as much focus on the borderline in the process as they need to, as long as it's not obliterating that we're talking about the person I'm working with codependency who's seeking to heal from a few different things, but they all overlay. They're all interconnected. So when I'm always saying that, if you're codependent, you're still on this roller coaster or this recycling thing, or you're in the limbo place and you're not turning away from that, or at least getting into working with someone. Like, I work with people who are in all iterations of this. You don't have to do anything to satisfy me. You don't have to be no contact. You don't have to know if you want it over or not. You don't have to have all those answers to just start working in a process where it can be very helpful for you to start understanding, to talk about things, to share, and for me to be able to help kind of maybe help you to see some things that maybe you're not so sure you want to see about your childhood or codependency, that then can start to bring back or bring to you for the first time more emotional autonomy with what you're going to choose. Because many people with codependency are, have very healthy intellects. You're capable in so many areas of your life. Many people own their own companies. Many people have successful jobs and careers with codependency. You have friends. You have almost everything going for you in the world. But when you encounter the borderline, then it's like something's missing, and you can't get over that. And you can't stop pursuing that. And you can't stop ruminating and thinking about it. And something about it triggers you massively. And people get not only heartbroken in these impossible relationships, but people feel utterly broken. And while you feel that way, please know that you're not really utterly broken. You're re-experiencing some core woundedness from your childhood. That's why you have codependency. And so, it's in the interpersonal sphere of relationship again, where codependency comes to the forefront strongly for people. Now, other people have codependency more severely are going to experience that across their lives, like not being able to say no to anybody, feeling guilty if you don't leave somebody super happy with you, caring too much about what other people think of you, etc., etc. But anyway, what do you think, just based on what I've said here? And if you're still not seeking a healing and recovery process, not actively wanting to learn how to be more there for you in an emotional way, and build and create a healthier relationship too with yourself to take you toward being independent versus codependent, so that you can learn going forward how to be interdependent, because all healthy relationships are based on two people each being independent coming together in interdependency. And this has long been an understood, well-defined aspect of one of the biggest foundations of what healthy relating is. So if you're codependent and you're still abandoning yourself, and make no mistake about it, you are, if you're not in a healing recovery journey, and if you're not really finished with that borderline or that narcissist, what do you really think that you're avoiding? Why are you self-abandoning you? Because you're avoiding you. Why would you put anybody else ahead of yourself that way? By the way, it's not narcissistic. It's totally self-defeating. So I hope something in there gave you food for thought or might have been helpful. Take care.